I'm back, baby. Hey, it's Adam the Bull in the bullpen. It is Friday, August the 12th, 2020. I am back from my wacky and wild vacation. I had my bag broken into at some point in the airport. I don't know if it's the Chicago airport or the Seattle airport. They stole things from my bag. Just kind of craziness. A lot to get to since I was last on with you, both on the podcast and the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's been a week. It's been a crazy week. I've had a lot of fun on vacation in Chicago and Seattle. Did a lot of great things. And now but I was keeping up on all the happenings here in Cleveland. I'm never fully gone. And a lot to get to today. Roger Goodell, he spoke. He thinks a full year suspension is warranted. Deshaun Watson reportedly said he'd take 8 games and a big fine. How is this finally going to hash itself out? Should Deshaun Watson play? What is the reason why Roger Goodell wants at least a year? Oh, the story that just won't die, even though we all wish it would. It's the Deshaun Watson situation and the latest on the Browns as they get ready to play their first preseason game tonight against the jumping Jacksonville Jaguars. Plus annoying media members besides me, and the Guardians are in first place. All coming up on today's edition of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull. I tried to point at the camera, and I missed. Right there. Now I'm pointing.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
I find it interesting that we hear often we want to give a punishment. I've heard some media members say this. Let me go back. Let me go back a step. My fellow media members, let me talk to you here. And this is not local. This is not anybody specific. This is just a general philosophy. We understand in this business, football sells. I get it as well as anybody. I understand that, okay? But stop overhyping players based on training camp. This guy's having a massive camp. This guy looks great in camp. What a play he made in camp. It's practice. They're not getting hit for the most part. The quarterbacks don't get hit at all. And it's much easier to play football when you know you're not getting hit. Of course you're going to play well. Now, if a guy is standout awful, you want to point that out? Okay, maybe. People pointed that out about Jamar Chase last year. How'd that turn out? But like getting excited about somebody in training camp, even preseason, is like, it's just crazy to me. We do this every year. We get suckered every year. We find guys that nobody ever heard of every year, and 95% of them do nothing or cut by week 2. So he's a big story on Hard Knocks. We get excited about, the coach did this. He cursed. Wow, big deal. I curse on Twitter every day. I'd curse here every day if I could. He curses. He said a butt cheek and 3 fingers, and everybody's all excited. Out of context. That could sound a little weird. Then we're going to do a big story about how, some scrubby white dude who makes the team, and then he's cut 2 weeks later and everybody forgets about him. It wasn't even a big a story. So the overhype of preseason drives me crazy. But another thing I've seen from my fellow media members is, well, Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens is a New York Yankee. Oh, my God. He's in George Steinbrenner's booth. Roger Clemens is a New York Yankee. I'm a little wacky today. Roger Goodell, I've seen this from a number of my fellow media members. Well, Roger Goodell wants to lay down a strict punishment for Deshaun Watson so nobody does it again. Do you not understand that if you're a human being, not just an athlete, if you're a human being who is going to be a predator, if you will, if that's what you think Deshaun Watson is, right? If you're going to do something inappropriate, if you're going to use, and I'm not, and in fact, I'm saying in this case, Deshaun Watson was not violent against women. He was certainly inappropriate. But if you're going to use violence against women, if you're going to do anything crossing the line, are you in that moment thinking, well, I was going to do this and this, but I might get suspended 16 games, so I'm not going to do it? Nobody's thinking about that in the moment. Don't you know how people's minds work? I always find it baffling to me when I see they want to lay down a law so people don't do this. They made drug laws tougher in this country. Did that stop people from buying and selling drugs? No. We lost the stupid, idiotic drug war. War on drugs. Just say no. Let me just say you're an idiot. This is not a preventative measure. This is not even a punitive. I mean, it is a punitive measure, but this has nothing to do with wanting to stop it from happening again. The reason Roger Goodell wants a long suspension is for good PR and to try to appease people who are angry. That's the only reason. Does anybody believe Roger Goodell cares what happened? Does anybody believe the league cared what happened? If they really cared, they'd do something about Robert Kraft. They'd do something about Jerry Jones. They'd do something about Daniel Snyder. They haven't done anything about those guys. They don't care. This is all about emotion of the PR game. That's what it's always been about. For once, we thought it wouldn't be about that. They had an independent arbiter who was going to take out the emotion from this situation, take out the PR game from this situation. They hired a woman. I don't know if they purposely hired a woman. My guess is they probably did. She had a ruling. People were still upset. People are still ripping the NFL, which, as much as I've ripped the NFL, it's kind of unfair for people to rip the NFL right now because at this point, the NFL keeps saying they want a longer suspension, and I keep seeing articles from people saying it's not a long enough suspension, which I disagree with. But if you feel that way, why do you blame the NFL? Wait till this is finally settled before you decide to blame the NFL. As much as I've killed the NFL, I think it's unfair to people to rip the NFL. When they're trying, they could have just let it go at 6, and they didn't. You asked an independent arbiter to handle it. She thought this was an appropriate penalty, and now everybody's up in arms again because of that. So the NFL has decided to change its mind. And for once, when they weren't going to use emotion to make a decision, when they weren't going to use PR to make a decision, they've decided, no, that's not good. We're not going to do it. We're going back to emotion and PR to make our decision. Which, okay, you run the league. He's the commissioner. They're the owners. Ultimately, they can do pretty much whatever they want. The players agreed to this bad system, so they got to live by it. I don't know if the Watson or the players' union is going to get any relief in federal court. I don't know. I'm certainly not a lawyer. I have no idea how that's going to turn out. But it is what it is. And what it is what it's always been. We're back to what we've always done in the league. Make decision based on not precedent, not fact. Well, yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, in this case, there are facts to back up a suspension. But we're going back to them. But ultimately, our decisions being made based on PR and emotion. And now the question is, will a decision get made today? By the time you listen to this podcast, maybe we have something from the new arbiter that the appeal has been sent to by the league, who has been hired by the league. He's not independent. Maybe he'll make a decision before the Browns play the Jaguars tonight, because we know that Deshaun Watson's supposed to start tonight and be on a field for the first time in a long time, and maybe the league doesn't want that, and maybe the league, maybe this decision's going to come out today, this afternoon, maybe even this morning after I'm done. At the moment, it's 8:22 Friday morning. And so maybe he won't play tonight. But if he does, well, Now, remember, if they suspend him indefinitely, he can't play tonight. He's out of training camp. If he's suspended indefinitely, if the suspension is extended to 8 or 10 or 12 games, but not the whole season and not indefinitely, he can still play tonight. But if it comes down today before the game that he is suspended indefinitely, then Watson's out. And, I guess there could be some sort of federal involvement that could get him. Who knows? Again, I'm out of my depth with that conversation in terms of the legal process. But I think if the penalty comes down and it's what the commissioner, publicly said he wants, which is a full year or indefinite, then Watson won't play. And even if they do go to court, it probably wouldn't stop that suspension from happening right now. Elsewhere, Mary Kay Cabot reported, I believe it was yesterday. My days are a little jumbled from changing time zones a bunch of times over the last week. But, I got to sneeze. It's like stuck in my nose. Wait. Oh, there we go. Feeling better. Hopefully I didn't get COVID from all my flights. I'm going to test before I go into the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today. I feel fine, but you never know. I was wearing a mask on a plane. I'll talk about my plane rides, too. You haven't lived. I decided for the first time in my life to pay for first-class seats. I had sat in first class once before, but I didn't pay for it. It was an upgrade because I allowed my seat to get bumped on a flight about 5-6 years ago, and I sat in they gave me first-class tickets for that. But for the first time in my life, I decided flying from Chicago to Seattle and Seattle to Cleveland, I was going to pay extra because it wasn't crazy. Usually those first-class tickets are crazy extra. And they were more expensive, but I was like, everything I've been through the last couple of years with my family, my wife, and having the kidney stone last week, I'm like, I want to be in comfort. And I paid the extra, and my gosh, what a difference sitting in first class. I don't know how I'm going to ever fly and coach again, but I'm going to have to. So that was a wonderful experience. But Mary Kay Cabot reported that now, if the suspension does end up being longer, the Browns may attempt to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, something we've talked about for a while. Very torn on this. Well, I shouldn't say I'm torn. I think it makes sense. Jimmy Garoppolo, if Deshaun Watson can't play, Jimmy Garoppolo is the best quarterback the Browns could possibly have. He's a class above Jacoby Brissett. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The problem is, in my opinion, if Deshaun Watson is suspended for the year, if Deshaun Watson's suspension somehow stays at 6, unlikely at this point, or goes to 8 or 10 or even 12, to me, no-brainer I trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. No-brainer. The question is, and I think I'm going to be in the minority on this, and I'm not even sure how I feel about my own opinion. If Deshaun Watson is suspended for the year or indefinitely, does it at that point make sense to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? And here's why. Because ultimately, and I know Jimmy Garoppolo has gone to the Super Bowl and gone to the NFC Championship game another time last year. But ultimately, in this AFC North, with this many good quarterbacks in this conference, Jimmy Garoppolo, in my opinion, is a good enough quarterback to keep you in the mix till Watson comes back. He might even be good enough to get you to the playoffs if he played a full season because the Browns roster is really good. Might be. But I just don't see any chance of Jimmy Garoppolo getting you to the Super Bowl. I can't see it. And that's why if it's 8 games, if it's 10 games, if it's 12 games, he has a better job of keeping me in the mix than Brissett. No-brainer I trade for him. And then down the stretch, I get Watson back, and I can win a Super Bowl with Watson. And I know some people would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Jimmy Garoppolo's been to the Super Bowl. Deshaun Watson's won one playoff game. How does that make any sense? Unique circumstances. Times have changed even in the few years since Garoppolo went to the Super Bowl. Not as good coaching. They had a perfect team around him. The Browns do have a very good team around them. I'm not saying, I'm not saying they can't be pretty good. I just think ultimately in the playoffs, when you're going to have to beat the likes of Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson or Joe Burrow or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or Derek Carr or who am I forgetting? Or Justin Herbert. You're going to probably have to beat 3 of those teams to make it to the Super Bowl, where it's at that point you'll probably have to play Stafford or Rodgers or Tom Brady. As good as the Browns are, a lot of those teams are also very good. And even if the Browns are better than some of those teams minus the quarterback, they're definitely not significantly better than any of those teams. It's close. The Browns are in the mix in terms of roster. But they're at a huge deficit with Garoppolo versus all those quarterbacks. And ultimately, I don't think they can win 3 or probably 4 playoff games with Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think they can't do it. I think they can with Watson. I think they can't with Garoppolo. On the other hand, do I just give up on the season if Watson doesn't play with all this talent I have? I think, as much as I say I'm hesitant to do it if Watson is suspended for the year, especially because then I'm targeting next year, and I know people don't want to wait till next year, but that's my best chance with Watson. And if I'm targeting next year and I trade for Garoppolo this year, while I'm negatively affecting the cap in 23 for a seat to try to possibly win in a season, which is unlikely because I now have the 9th or 10th best quarterback in the conference. And that's the tough situation the Browns have to look at. Again, if it's 6, 8, 10, or even 12, I'm pulling that trigger on Garoppolo because I need him to give me the best chance to stay in it till Watson comes back. If it's a full season, I think it's a different story. Ultimately, I still would be okay with the Browns trading for him because I don't think you can give up on a season. And even though I don't think you can go to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, I could certainly be wrong. Got to take a break. Should have taken one already. Come back. But in just a moment, when we come back, I want to talk about the Guardians. They deserve some conversation. A first-place team. We'll get into that in just a bit. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering, live in-game betting, scores, podcasts. They got you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, what a run it has been for the Cleveland Guardians. Now, we all understand that the American League Central is not a good division. It's probably the worst division in baseball. Certainly the worst division in the American League. The Royals are terrible. The Tigers are terrible. The White Sox have been a huge disappointment. But you still got to play well enough to win a division, right? The White Sox are a talented roster. The Twins have a talented roster. The White Sox have spent a lot of money on their roster. The Twins have spent a lot of money on their roster. The Guardians have not. But they've played great at home. They've been okay on the road. And this morning, they are 7 games over 500 at 59 and 52. And at the moment, have the 5th best record in the American League. And really only significantly behind the Yankees and the Astros, who are clearly the 2 best teams in the American League. That's it. I mean, the Blue Jays have the 3rd best record in the American League. They're 10 games over. The Guardians are 7. So there's only 2 teams in the American League with a significantly better record than the Guardians. They opened the day a game and a half up on the Twins. They're playing really well. They've won 5 in a row. They've won 7 of 10. the offense is and what's been interesting is, early in the season, Jose Ramirez was playing at an MVP level. He has not since that thumb injury. He's been average. He has not been great. Obviously, Stephen Kwan, who got off to the great start, then slumped for a while, has picked it up, and he's had some big hits. He gets on. And you got between Kwan, Jimenez, and Rosario, those three guys have played really well. Because there's other spots you're not getting much. I mean, obviously Naylor's played well too. But Reyes was a disaster, and when I was gone, they DFA'd him. Oscar Gonzalez has done a solid job. You've had some of these guys come up and done a solid job. Nolan Jones. But Miles Straw has been awful. Owen Miller has been awful. The catching spot, we've talked about this a million times. They have these massive holes. You have only two consistent starting pitchers, McKenzie and Bieber. Bieber's really pitched well lately. I was really worried about him, and I'm still worried about him in the long term, and I think they still will trade him in the offseason. But he's pitched well of late, and we know what the back end of the bullpen has been. Karinchak, who was a disaster the second half of last year in the minors and injured earlier this year, is really coming into his own. Did get in trouble, but got out of it. And Emmanuel Clase, what can you say? This guy has been as good as any closer in baseball, any relief pitcher in baseball, period. Absolutely lights out. An 0.69 whip. To put that in perspective, an 0.69 whip. Whip is walks and hits divided by innings pitched. So basically, if your whip is 1, that means you're allowing 1 base runner per inning. That's good. Like, if you have a whip of 1, you're doing well. Now, it's easier to have I'd say it's easier for a relief pitcher to have a good whip, but not necessarily, because you have one bad game, it could blow it up. So Shane Bieber's whip is 109. That's good. Tristan McKenzie's whip is 096. That's really good. Emmanuel Clase's whip, 069. That's phenomenal. He has allowed 33 base runners in 47 2/3 innings and only 6 walks. For a closer to only give up 6 walks, in an MLB now where there's so few guys you can trust at the back end of the bullpen. I mean, there's so many big arms, but man, teams go through closers like they're changing underwear these days. And Emmanuel Clase, who they got for Corey Kluber, who's actually having a decent season this year for Tampa Bay, but he didn't do anything for Texas, which is where the Guardians traded him to. It was a great trade, and Clase's just been absolutely brilliant. So you look at the team, and they're overachieving. And that's what Terry Francona, that's what makes him special. He's not the perfect manager. Nobody is. He's flawed sometimes with the bunting, drives me nuts. Some of the pitching changes sometimes have you scratching your head. Some of the lineup moves. I don't understand sometimes when Owen Miller's batting cleanup, but you know what? It usually seems to work, especially the second half of the year. We asked a question on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. The week before we started, we were doing some practice runs. And I was trying to talk the other guys into, on September 1st, the Guardians still being in the mix, and nobody believed it. And I thought they could, but I didn't think they'd be this good. I didn't think they'd be a real contender, and they are. And it's quite a shame. I know a lot of people would say, see, they didn't need the reinforcements. They're playing great without them. Yeah, they still could use the reinforcements. This team is better than the sum of its parts. There's no doubt. And if they're going to do anything, and if they're going to make the postseason, and they're going to do anything when they get there, it's going to be on the backs of Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, Emmanuel Clase. They're going to have to do the heavy lifting because there's not, the lineup's got major flaws, and the rest of the rotation. I know Plesac pitched well yesterday, but does anybody trust Plesac, Quantrill, or Savali? I don't. I don't trust any of those guys. Now, if you get into a longer series, you're going to have to pitch those guys at least 3 games between them. Probably Quantrill and Plesac. But I don't trust those guys at all. But and the Guardians are going to need Jose Ramirez to come around, and that's what was so. I remember at the end of May, people were getting mad because it was like, oh, the media is going to hand Aaron Judge the MVP. Well, it's the end of May. Now it's a silly conversation because Jose Ramirez is not, he's been just average since May, since the injury, and obviously Aaron Judge is well on his way to winning the MVP. But even that, we still got 6-7 weeks. Still got Ohtani, a couple other guys, but those MVP conversations are stupid before the end of the year, and certainly stupid in May and June. At least this point, we're 3 quarters done with the season. But it is remarkable that the Guardians are where they are. It really is, and Terry Francona and the players deserve a ton of credit. They still could use reinforcements. They're going to Toronto for this weekend, which will be a tough series, although they are missing Alex Manoah, who's been their best starter. Kevin Gausman's been really good for Toronto as well. He pitches the Sunday game. Jose Barrios goes tonight against the Guardians. He's been a huge disappointment for them. Great, but great pitching matchup on Sunday with Bieber against Gausman. And then you come back home 7 against the Tigers and White Sox again, an opportunity for the Guardians to pile up some wins before they go out west after that. But overall, the schedule's pretty favorable the rest of the way. Again, you're playing the 3 games in Toronto. It was tough. The 2 at San Diego and the 4 at Seattle. That West Coast trip won't be easy. Then you come home for Baltimore and Seattle, 2 teams playing surprisingly well. Still got to go to Minnesota and then play they got a 5-game homestand with the Twins. A wraparound weekend with a doubleheader. And then you still got Tampa Bay at home before the end of the year. But man, this can't be right. What is the Friday, Saturday? According to this, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this must be a mistake. The Guardians have 6 games at home against the Royals to end the season? Is that possible? That's got to be a typo. I got to double-check that schedule. That looks so weird. But anyway, the bottom line is 111 games in. 51 games to go. Past the 2/3 point. Guardians are right there. They're in first place. Got a great chance to make the playoffs. So I won't I'll let it go in terms of not making a move because at this point there's nothing they could do. Quick break, wrap things up next right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. So some final thoughts. I mentioned, first of all, on my trip, and I'll talk more about this in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, had an amazing vacation. We met up with my sister and her family in Chicago. Went to a Cubs-Marlins game at Wrigley Field. Cubs got a 2-run homer from Wilson Contreras in the bottom of the 8th to win it, 2-1. My son was really excited because I had just gotten him a Contreras T-shirt before the game. We went to the aquarium in Chicago. We went on a riverboat architectural tour, which was awesome. Went to the top of the Willis Tower, formerly Sears Tower, which was really an amazing thing. And then flew out to Seattle to see some good friends that my wife and I met in Cleveland. Very close. They're like family to us. And they have a 3-year-old that we hadn't met in person because of COVID and an previous injury I had when she was a baby, and got to spend time with them and had a great family trip. Went to see Mount Rainier. I was over 5,000 feet in the air on the mountain, which was, just mind-blowing. If you ever get a chance to go, we took a ferry to some of those islands in Seattle. We saw the Space Needle, and I ate amazing food the whole trip. It was a wonderful trip, and I had a really great time. Fantasy football right around the corner. We're going to be doing a fantasy football league on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Hopefully we'll finally get a resolution on the Watson thing. I hope he gets to play at some point this year. I understand people are angry. I have a lot of mixed emotions about it myself. We'll see how it settles itself out. All right, thanks for listening and watching as always. You can follow me on Twitter at Adam the Bull. You can check out, I've been doing a lot of fantasy football cameo videos. People have been hiring me to do that. I love doing those. It's fun. Check out my Cameo profile. Any video you want me to make with it, I guess not anything, but most things I'm willing to do. I'm having so much fun doing those. Check out my website, adamthebull.com. Click on the Book the Bull tab. If you want to hire me to do a speaking engagement or marry you, I am authorized by the state of Ohio to marry people. And also, please watch the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show live on YouTube, weekdays 11 to 1. Subscribe, hit the bell to get notifications. And check out the Locked on Browns podcast with my guy G. Bush as well. We'll talk to you soon. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See you later.